Hello, everyone. My research project is over the effects of implementing nature in its research study on mental health and job satisfaction. So, if adding a plant on your desk made your workday more enjoyable, would you do it? Or what if sitting by the window during your shift at the office improved your mental health and cognitive behavior? Would you consider moving your desk? Well, this research study is going to closely analyze employees' perceived control over greenery exposure and the effects over their levels of depression, anxiety, and job satisfaction. There have been multiple studies showing and supporting the concept that implementing more nature in work environments can improve overall personnel mental and physical health. So, this research study highlights previous data from Anne and others from 2016 to examine and analyze measures within the work environment such as job satisfaction, mood, and behavior. We're going to analyze the effects of nature on employee mental health and job satisfaction. So specifically, the study analyzes the difference in employee perceived control over greenery, and do we see a difference in mental health or job satisfaction when personnel actually perceive that they have more control over that amount of greenery exposure. Studies have expanded beyond work environments and have been analyzed within school atmospheres too. So the implication of outdoor learning and activities and the involvement of greenery inside classrooms has shown to improve students' overall physical and mental health. A specific study suggested that students not only improved their well-being, but improved academically and became more efficient leaders. It also stated in this article from Becker and others, 2017, that the teachers actually improved as well. Another study used comparatively highlights the importance of stress-reducing environments. It conducted an experiment with personnel employed at a southeastern university, and that was from Largo Waite and others in 2011. And the point of that study was how to reduce stress of not just the employees, but the given environment. And the article supported the concept of wellness by design, meaning that employees should be influenced to environmental modifications within the workforce. So the study highlighted adults in the workforce and was comprised of 444 personnel who worked more than 20 hours a week. The participants were recruited through Amazon's online marketplace and were from the US and India. The sample was made up of 53.4% females, the average age being 31, 34.9% were reported Caucasian, and 54.3% were reported Asian. Participant occupations varied throughout different industries, and participants were paid 75 cents for participation in the study. So the measures, the research study was measured based on different scientific scales and personnel feedback in regards to the experiment. The variables that are being compared involve employee perceived control to greenery in nature, mental/satisfaction improvement seen when implemented in their given settings, and how they perceive their personal implications are identified. So when looking at the Anne and others article, 2016 data, the natural elements exposure was measured based off a 5-point Likert scale ranging from 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. Job satisfaction was measured similarly. It was measured using the Kamen, Fisham, Jenkins, and Klesch scale. So personnel were asked to indicate how satisfied they were with their job using a 7-point, again, Likert scale ranging from 1 to 7 strongly disagree to strongly agree. The procedure, this research study consisted of measuring the natural element exposure in general terms, so more of a casual environment, and how adults responded to their overall feelings of exposure. So researchers calculated the numerous ways in which nature could be exposed in the workplace, whether this is directly, indirectly, or representationally. So a scale was developed in which measured perceived exposure. Personnel had to rate theirs based on the Likert style scale. This was measured based off the perceived exposure in regards to 9 items like potted plants, photographs, paintings that may have depicted nature, natural environments through windows, or even computer screensavers. So employees responded to which extent they agreed with the given statements regarding the perceived greenery, and employees were asked to respond, again, on the Likert 5-point scale. Along with their satisfaction, personnel had to indicate how satisfied they were at that moment with their job. So for the results, the overall analysis was conducted on the following 4 variables, as I mentioned: perceived control over exposure to greenery, job satisfaction, levels of depression, and levels of anxiety. And you can see here the averages, the means, and the standard deviations for each of those. And the histogram below shows the variables analyzed with the perceived control over greenery. A correlation amongst the variables was ran against the perceived control over greenery exposure. You can see that up in the corner in the scatter plot. The positive correlation was found between job satisfaction and employee perceived control over exposure to greenery. These results also displayed the highest correlation within the tested variables, so that is what we see on the scatter plot itself. It's labeled at the bottom. A negative correlation was discovered between levels of depression and perceived control over greenery exposure, as well as with anxiety, a negative correlation. Employees who had more control and exposure of greenery tend to show higher levels of job satisfaction, and perceived control over greenery exposure is negatively related to employee levels of depression and employee levels of anxiety. Discussion. The working hypothesis behind the research study stated that employees will show better improvement in overall mental health and satisfaction in their environment when exposed to more nature and greenery that they perceive that they control. So this hypothesis was supported through correlations of the specific variables, as we just went over, along with similar studies that supported the theory that nature implications will positively affect and impact personnel well-being, satisfaction, cognitive behavior, those types of things. So from the Largo, Waite, and others article, they indicated that when the amount of employee workday nature contact was increased, there was an overall general decrease in health concerns and complaints from the employees. And from Becker and others article, studies stated that outdoor education programs can and had improved students psychologically and socially within the classroom. And it was also noted that they became more better leaders and had more confidence. So overall, the environment in which the study was conducted, it did leave numerous limitations in regards to personnel in given workspace in which the research was collected. So focusing on an office space did reduce the ability to draw a better overall conclusion on how nature implications can affect different types of settings. So we would have likely seen different results if we had done this in a construction site, like a dentist's office, things like that. Furthermore, research could be conducted in regards to the environment of the study along with the personnel. So one example of this could be utilizing a school setting. This would allow for comparative data in regards to adult versus children and work versus school settings. So we could compare different variables, as I mentioned, adults and children, and work and school. How are these environments different, and do we see drastic differences amongst the two? From Strife and others article, that could be a good comparative study to this one in regards to how adults and children are at disadvantage in their environment in regards to the amount of nature that they are exposed to or have access to. So the article had talked about, the Strife article had talked about how students don't have the ability to choose at most times to learn outside or bring these nature elements in the classroom, much as like adults might not have the ability to get to work outside or bring nature elements into the job themselves. So overall, the hypothesis was supported through comparative measures and the different research. Employees showed more overall job satisfaction when they have more control and exposure to greenery, and employees who rated lower in levels of depression and anxiety tend to score higher in levels of perceived control over greenery exposure. So giving the employees the ability to control that greenery exposure will increase the satisfaction and overall decrease levels of depression and anxiety amongst the office, or might not even be related to that. Expanding the research study beyond the given data may provide more in-depth measures as far as how other environments and personnel can be affected by perceived control over greenery. That is my presentation, and thank you for watching. These are the references that I used for my research paper and my presentation.